Hello, everybody, and welcome to the latest issue of Comic Book Gentlemen. I'm Greg, your host, and I'm joined by my co-host, Dave. Say hello, Dave.
Hey, everybody.
Today, we have another new podcast idea We took a comic that neither of us have read, and we decided to read it, give our thoughts about it, give a kind of a review, what we liked, what we didn't like, and see if we recommend it to all you listeners out there. So, Dave, take it away. Why don't you give us a little backstory to this, what we're reading and what we're reviewing.
Absolutely. So we decided to read Avengers: No Road Home, which is a 10-issue run that followed the event previous to it, the story arc known as No Surrender, which saw the Earth kind of stolen by these two cosmic entities known as the Grandmaster and the Challenger, and used as like a playing board or a chessboard in a grand cosmic game. You saw the introduction of an Avenger, but not an Avenger, by the name of Voyager. And a lot of other interesting things happened during that No Surrender, such as the reincarnation or the resurrection of the Hulk for, I don't know, probably the third time in 2 years. And this was the follow-up to it that was a little less, I think, a little less known, not as much fanfare surrounding it. And these were the two series that led into essentially the Avengers series that's now currently running. So the Avengers No Surrender saw the original Avengers team, the Unity Squad, and the U.S. Avengers kind of combined in this giant threat. The follow-up is essentially the universe has now fallen into darkness. 7 Avengers, including one new addition, kind of journey through this 10-issue series, attempting to fight back and bring the light back to the universe and to Earth itself.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, we're gonna definitely mention right now. This is full spoilers. So if you haven't, we may mention spoilers, may not do full spoilers, but we will be talking about a little bit. So if you want to be 100% spoiler free, go read it now, and then you can come back and listen to what we think about it. Or if you're okay with hearing, some story bits, feel free to keep listening. So let's start, Dave, with what did you like about the No Road Home?
What did I like? Well, the 7 Avengers that they brought forward were characters that I just don't think are front and center, outside of maybe the Scarlet Witch, Vision, and Hawkeye. Mm-hmm. But again, not exactly Avengers, I would say, are right at the forefront of everybody's thoughts, especially with the movies. You see, Iron Man, Captain America, Thor, getting more of the publicity and the attention. So I like the fact that they took this kind of ragtag group of mm-hmm. Avengers that you normally don't get a lot of. They just don't get a lot of airtime, and put them front and center in the series, including. Some that I'd really never read anything that they were in. Mm-hmm. So for me, it was a nice mix of characters in the sense of it had some characters I was familiar with, it sprinkled in with some characters that I wasn't so familiar with, and I did enjoy the fact that I got to spend 10 issues with those characters.
Yeah, I'll agree. The cast itself was very interesting. It kind of reminded me of what we did a couple episodes ago where we assembled our own Avengers. It felt like that's what these authors did, is they went, hey, who are our favorite characters? Let's slam them together, and that we'll call them our Avengers. We'll go through the list a little bit. Like you said, Scarlet Witch is in there, Vision is in there. You have Hulk, which is really interesting. He's been an Avenger before, but this iteration of Hulk I found was very interesting in the team. Hawkeye, which is interesting because Hawkeye, you could tell kind of just got strung along. It wasn't like he was planning on coming along. He just kind of he was hanging out with Scarlet Witch, so it's like, hey, you're with us now. You had Spectrum, which I thought, this is actually my first comic I've read with Spectrum, and I actually really enjoyed her. I thought she was very interesting. I didn't really get her powers, but it was still a good read. Then you also had Rocket Raccoon, which to me was the most random addition. And again,
Comic relief.
yeah, exactly. Like it's one of those things where it's like I thought he was really random, but at the same time, he was one of my favorite characters in the whole story. It made
Yeah.
no sense, but it was great. And then you had instead of Thor, you had Hercules, which I thought
Yes.
again was it kind of just felt like Thor light in my opinion.
Yeah.
Like it was almost like Thor's busy or we've overdone Thor too much, so let's just throw in another ancient god type of thing. But he still again brought some interesting things to the table that definitely kept the story going and kept it going along.
Yeah, and I like the fact that they, like you said, they highlighted some characters that you maybe haven't had a lot of exposure to, such as Hercules. I like the fact that Vision was kind of powered down a bit, so he wasn't just able to just carry the load. You had other characters such as I agree with you. I think Spectrum really stepping to the forefront and kind of demonstrating what kind of a superhero she can be on any team. And you'd think, oh, well, it doesn't all matter. You just throw the Hulk at it and he'd smash it. Well, no, this was the Immortal Hulk. So a very, twisted, different kind of Hulk to throw into the mix.
Yeah, I'd have to say, like, I was going through my points of, like, thinking, like, what did I really like about this thing? I would say my Hulk in this storyline was probably my favorite part of the entire storyline. Because, like you were saying earlier, it's Immortal Hulk, so he's a lot darker. And
Yeah.
this is the Hulk that just came off the fact he was murdered by Hawkeye during Civil War II. So
Yep.
it was, like, very interesting having him with Hawkeye together. Like any moment that just had those two hanging out, I thought was like really cool. Like you had this crazy tension within the team. So I was like, that's really interesting. And then the things he does in the story, and this is like, getting into spoiler territory here. So again, if you don't want spoilers, stop listening. He almost felt like a sub villain throughout the story. Like like all the other Avengers were on the same page. They were like, that's the bad guy. We're going after the bad guy. Let's, join forces and go from there. Hulk the entire time was just like, I just kind of got dragged into this. But if there's a chance for me to become more powerful and blow up the world, I'm totally down. And his entire subplot was like, hey, maybe I'll destroy the world. And why not?
Yeah, and the introduction of the villains in this particular run with Nyx, the goddess Night, and her children, which were completely brand new. I'd never encountered them before. I was initially, and I'm going to say initially, I was initially very intrigued.
Yeah.
Because you open up into the story and the entire Pathon of Mount Olympus has been just laid waste by the goddess of night and her children. So it's like, okay, you've got the most ragtag group of Avengers are going to take on this group that have just taken out all these gods.
Yeah, and like their designs are top notch. Like they mentioned in the book that they actually got a guy named Joshua James Shaw to do the designs for these guys, and I guess he's like a creative director in a lot of the Marvel movies, like a whole bunch of them. And yeah, these are really nice designs. Like especially, I'll shout out Hypnos. Like if you don't take anything else from this, go look up Hypnos. Really cool design. Maybe not the best story, but really cool design.
Yeah,
Highly
and
recommend.
I my personal favorite. I liked the twins. I even enjoyed their power sets. The lizard creepy Dolos was just just not like just a nightmare.
Yeah, actually, Dolos is one of the twins. It's Dolos and a pig.
Oh, sorry, you're right.
Oisis, or I don't know how to pronounce that, but Oisis.
Yeah, Oiz.
Yeah,
It
Oreos.
was just a very interesting power set. I was really surprised by the character design of that one, considering the rest were all look like children of the goddess, whereas this one was just like this thing. But all in all, I thought Paco Medina in the first few issues where these characters introduced knocked it out of the park with the art and the introduction to the characters. And you're right, the overall design of them was great.
So yeah, like we were saying, the main villains in the story are Nyx, who is the goddess of night in the Greek pantheon, and then Hypnos, Oisis, Dolos, and Pat or Apate are her children. That basically just they're kind of her version of the Black Order from Thanos. It's called Black Order, right? From Thanos?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes.
it's kind of like her version of that, except they're actually her children. So, like Dave was saying, they start off really strong in the fact that like these 5 characters kill the entire Greek pantheon. That's including Zeus. You got Apollo, Athena, like all these crazy gods. These guys, waltz in, pretty much kill them without breaking a sweat. And like you have this, like at the end of the issues is really imposing, like Nick standing over all the dead bodies going, oh, you're here, let me deal with you guys now too. It definitely set the tone for the rest of the book, or at least you think it's going to set the tone for the rest of the book.
Yeah.
And then it kind of goes from there, and it kind of changes as you go along. So what did you think of the story started going past this point?
I thought the first couple issues, I was on board. I was definitely curious. Looking at the lineup of writers, I enjoyed the artist. Was checking all the boxes that I look for especially in a short run series, and the characters. Again, very very interesting to see where this was going to go, and I felt like the first, say 3-4 issues maybe were on point. Like it was going kind of where I thought it was. You typically have the bad guy shows up, just absolutely wipes the floor with everybody, and then slowly you start to kind of build up towards that kind of world-ending threat kind of feeling, and then I was expecting the big turnaround, which always happens, obviously, with the heroes finding some way to overcome this new threat that is almost unbeatable. And I felt after that after about the 4th issue, I have to say I felt like it just fell off the map. Like they just wandered so far off the path that I was really disappointed due to what I was kind of looking forward to in it, with the characters, with the story, and kind of where they were going, these new villains, and it just kind of flamed out for me.
Yeah. No, I definitely agree with that. So basically what happens with the plot is, Nyx takes out all the Greek gods, but then it turns out that Zeus crippled her a little bit, which doesn't make sense for if she's crippled, how is she able to kill Zeus? Like, doesn't really make any sense, but whatever. So he crippled her by taking, like, basically turning her power into a bunch of shards and then scattering these 3 shards across the galaxy, or even multiple dimensions and whatnot. And then so Nyx is trying to find the shards, and then she even like takes Voyager and like uses her powers to try to help her find the shards. Meanwhile, so like the other Avengers find out about this, and then I can't remember, Voyager's the one that splits them up, right? Before she gets controlled, she basically splits them all up. So you have Hulk, Hawkeye, Rocket in Nightmare Dimension. You have Scarlet Witch, Vision, Spectrum, and I think somebody else, right?
No, it was just them.
They go to Hercules. They go to the city where all the gods, Omnipotent City, I believe it's called.
Yeah.
They go there, and then they don't know where the third one is. So those are the 2 places that they know shards are. So they go there, and it's very interesting because it actually reminded me a lot of Thor Ragnarok with Hela.
Right.
Where he had the whole situation of you didn't know Hela existed. She's like a dark version of the gods. She rises back up because the main, like, a power thing happened where she was able to escape, and then she kind of wipes the floor with everybody, which Nyx does. But then it's kind of like they forget how powerful she is. Like she literally was able with her children to wipe out the entire Greek pantheon, but then she
and not just like knock them out.
No, brutally murder them.
Kill them.
Oh yeah. Like they were dead, and it was cool. But then like she never does that again.
No.
Like she, Dolos, Apate, and Oisis end up following the Avengers because apparently she's able to see through Scarlet Witch's eyes. They go to Omnipotent City. Meanwhile, Hypnos is using his army of sleeping people, which seemed really random,
Yes,
to
very
attack
random.
Nightmare's dimension,
Hmm.
which Nightmare I believe is an old villain of the Avengers.
Yes.
Yeah, they split up. Even the bad guys split up, and it was very interesting because, like you said, it starts off like this sounds really cool, and like it starts off really cool because you have like Hulk, Hawkeye, Rocket trying to figure out how to take out an entire army, and then
Yeah,
meanwhile you
and
have the other Avengers taking out Nyx herself. Like,
yeah, and the dynamic of like just that group.
yeah,
Hulk, Rocket, and Hawkeye.
yeah,
You've got Hawkeye, who is, going through. I felt like through the whole thing was going through this like, what's my place
yeah. What's the
in
point
the
of being here?
Avengers?
Yeah,
But he was like, it was like I'm soul searching my own place in the Avengers, but then he always seemed to have that place in the Avengers, like at least in this series, and the fact that the Hulk obviously is not overly thrilled with Hawkeye,
yeah,
because Hawkeye killed him,
yeah,
helped him commit sort of suicide,
mm-hmm.
and then you just have a random Rocket Raccoon who is like, he's kind of okay with Hawkeye. Like, I don't think there was much of a dynamic there, but certainly was kind of like, oh hey Hulk, how you doing? And that, like, it was just an interesting little group of people with their own little inner turmoil as to what was going on, especially between the Hulk and Hawkeye.
Yeah, because like I said, the Hulk was definitely the best part of the story, and including Rocket. Again, Rocket was really random, but he was one of the best parts of the story. Like, basically, if any other person had been there except for Rocket, they would have been on Hawkeye's side. But because it was Rocket and Hulk, Rocket was on Hulk's side. Basically, every time Hulk was like, let's go murder people, Rocket's like, yeah, and Hawkeye's like, what? Like, this isn't how it's supposed to go. And Rocket's like, shut up. Like,
Yeah.
we're going to do it anyways. Like, that was definitely a really interesting dynamic. And again, like, this story arc starts off really strong. Like, these, you have two separate battles going on two fronts. Like you said earlier, you have a couple people who are having power issues. Like, Vision's weak, which I think, is there a reason why he was weak?
Yeah, his solar, I think it's a solar gem, was damaged by the Hulk.
Oh, shit.
In No Surrender.
Okay.
So he's deteriorating.
Mm-hmm. So
he's essentially experiencing, human, the human feeling of death,
mortality. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is a very interesting story for Vision. I don't know if that's something they do very often. So I think it's definitely an interesting story. Like I will say that's one thing I enjoyed about this series is each issue changed who was narrating it.
Yeah.
So like you said, there was one issue where Hawkeye was narrating it. He's constantly talking about, am I worthy to be an Avenger? And that was very interesting dialogue and discussion because, I mean, that's something we talk about all the time. We even mentioned it a couple issues ago. We were like, why is Hawkeye an Avenger? It's stupid. But then
what I appreciated about that is as he's having this inner thought and turmoil, there's just constant shots from especially the Hulk.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Constantly reminding him how useless he is.
Yeah. Like, what are you going to do? Shoot an arrow at them?
Yeah. Like, no. This is for real Avengers.
Yeah.
You just stay here.
Yeah.
Like, it was everything that I, certainly I've said through the years regarding Hawkeye, was just like, it was just laid bare in this series.
Well, and the other funny thing is, like, they bring it up, and you think they're gonna, like, eventually, like, kind of do what they did in Age of Ultron, where the reason why Hawkeye's important is because he inspires people or whatever. But Hawkeye literally says in the book, the only reason I'm here is because I'm really lucky.
Yeah.
Like, he literally says that in the book. It's like, the only reason I'm still alive after all these years is, I don't know, I flipped a coin, like something crazy like that. And I thought that was very funny that, like, they tried to have this serious conversation about Hawkeye, and then it just kind of ended up being a little bit of a joke. It's like,
like, I was waiting for that Hawkeye moment where he would step up and everybody go, oh, okay, that's why he's here.
Yeah.
And it kind of happened. He, like, had an inspirational speech, and then for some reason the Immortal Hulk, who's just, I mean, let's just admit it, he's a grade A-hole, then turns around and goes, maybe I was wrong about you, kind of thing, like, which was just kind of like, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
And he says, what do you, towards the end when they're hitting the climax, and it's like, what do you want most, Hawkeye? And he's just like, one good shot.
Mm-hmm.
And he has that shot, but it doesn't mean anything.
No,
In
like
the result, the end result, it meant nothing.
like he was literally just the distraction at the most. He was a distraction,
most.
and
Yeah.
that was it. So it was very interesting. And like I said, they did it with I think almost every character. Like that Hercules had a couple thoughts where he was. I guess he's been going through a thing where he's trying to redeem himself. Like he stopped drinking. He's trying to make sure that people actually remember him as a hero and whatnot, which I thought was very interesting. Like
Yeah.
you said, Vision has the whole "I'm mortal now." What does that mean? And then I thought it was very interesting that they had the flip side, which was Spectrum now realizes that she's immortal, and
Yeah.
then she kind of loses her, like she's struggling to keep her humanity as she's going along.
Yeah.
I thought that was a very interesting struggle. And then you had Rocket, whose struggle was basically, I'm mad, so I'm gonna go shoot somebody. Like that was his whole struggle, and it was very
Yeah.
like it was deeper than that. Like he's very much like, hey, my life was shit, and I want to kind of get revenge for it, and it was a little bit deeper than that. But it felt like they kind of didn't have a proper ending to it. It was kind of just like, hey, I feel bad, type of thing.
Yeah. I felt like just going if I go kind of hero to hero, I was like, this series confirmed just for me exactly how useless Hercules is. Like he's just if you think about most of the superheroes now, they've got like multiple powers and know how to use them in very creative ways that keep it interesting. He like you said, he's like Thor light. I would say he's even Thor lighter. It was just and there was nothing there. Like it was like, oh, I'm mad. You killed all these people that I love, and I'm just gonna punch you. Like he mentioned, I don't know how many times he said he was gonna punch Nix in the face. It just really showed me like there's really not a lot of substance there.
Yeah, like
as far as the character.
You could see they were trying to give him character growth. It just never felt anything better than what we've seen in the past. Like it feels like you said, he just kind of felt like Thor light, and even his character development felt like Thor light.
Yeah.
Where it's like the main reason he was there was just they needed a pantheon of gods for Nyx to kill and to show how strong she was.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then I felt Rocket Raccoon, it was just like a confirmation you can drop him into anything. And no matter how weird it seems that he's there, and there's some way you can make him fit, and it's still funny. And that just how entertaining of a character he is, even when he wasn't really doing anything. Like even if it was just little quips on the side, it kept me interested in his character and what he was doing.
Yeah.
As far as Hawkeye, it was just like, okay, show me why Hawkeye. Oh, you're not going to show me why Hawkeye is important. Okay. Oh, you just confirmed that really, in my eyes, he's one of the most useless Avengers of all time.
Like, even they say
with his
it.
bow.
Like...
I hate to say it. I mean, I'm a big fan of all superheroes, but it just... his fit on the Avengers, maybe back in the day when it first came out, maybe it made sense. But this now is just getting to the level of ridiculousness when you keep bringing these guys along that just have no place. And even when you write into the story, okay, you make fun of them endlessly through the whole series, and then there's that moment where you're thinking, okay, there's going to be this moment. It's going to be a Hawkeye moment, and you're going to go, okay, yeah, that's Hawkeye. And it's like it kind of happens, and then it's just kind of like it didn't really matter.
Yeah. Like, he was just there for Hulk to threaten, almost. Like, that was the only reason he was there for. And it felt like a couple characters were like that. Like we said, Hawkeye felt random. Rocket felt really random. Like, he was great, but he was just so... like, there was no reason why he was there. And then there's even another character that pops up halfway through the story that even felt more random. And it was just like... again, it was just kind of felt like the authors kind of just picked their favorite characters and just smashed them into a book together. And we're like, this is what we're doing. So, like we said, Hulk, Hawkeye, and Rocket are dealing with Hypnos in the Nightmare Realm, and then the other Avengers are fighting Nyx and her other children in the Omnipotent City. So this is kind of where I would say the climax of the story is when they're in Omnipotent City. Scarlet Witch is crippled because she got crippled early on in the book.
Yep.
Which, I mean, it was just kind of there because she's so powerful. It felt like if she wasn't crippled, she could have just solved this problem way earlier.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was just kind of like, hey, let's just blind her for the sake of it.
Yeah.
So then at this climax, it looks like Nyx gets a crystal from Omnipotent City, and then she's like, I am done with dealing with your guys' crap because I know where to go now, so I'm going to try to take you out. So it looks like at the end of this issue, she wipes out Hercules, Spectrum, Vision, and yeah, those three.
Yeah.
And then Scarlet Witch gets sent to an alternate dimension, which I can't remember if that was Voyager that did that or somebody else.
I believe it was Voyager.
Voyager does, and then in the alternate other storyline, I think that's when they're about to fight Hypnos for the Crystal and Nightmare Realm, which again is really cool. Like I think that's when Hulk they meet Nightmare because he's the ruler of the realm, and then they make a deal, and Nightmare's kind of like, "What do you want?" And Hulk just smiles, and then you smash cut to him riding a shadow steed riding into battle. Like, it's such a cool splash. And like that's cool. So then you find out that Scarlet Witch got sent to an alternate dimension. She thinks her friends are dead. She gets sent to Conan the Barbarian.
Yes.
So how did you feel about this twist?
Oh, let me just soak in this for a minute. When the minute it happened, I was like, oh, this is how they bring Conan into the Savage Avengers.
Yeah.
Like it was just so random.
Yeah.
That this took place because the Scarlet Witch escapes with the crystal.
Oh yeah, you're right. Yeah.
And she shows up there. Of course, she's still blind. She drops the crystal. Some bandits pick it up and run away, and she's assisted by Conan the Barbarian.
Yeah.
Now, let me get this straight. I very much enjoy Conan. Robert E. Howard, great writer. I very much enjoy Conan. I enjoyed the movies. This was like one of the most random things I could have imagined happening in this storyline. And it pretty much, in my opinion, it just took over.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it was like 3 issues.
Yeah.
They were in Conan's realm.
Yeah. Just traveling around, chasing after some bandits who happened to be, what were they? They were a part of some Raven cult.
No, they weren't. They got attacked by the Raven cult.
That's right. Sorry.
Yeah.
They got attacked by the Raven cult. Then that gem was taken by the Raven cult, who was then going to sacrifice somebody. And it was just so random, and I felt like the build-up at the beginning just completely shifted gears, but not in a good way. Like it went to another story, and maybe done in the right way, maybe that it would have worked. But for me, it was just like, now I feel like I got all hyped up for story arc A, and then I move into story arc B, and it's just like, I don't know what's going on, and this is just not working for me.
Yeah, like it was a complete tone shift. Like it felt like we went from a superhero comic to a D&D comic.
Yeah.
And I think that really speaks to the writers they had on this on this thing. So you had the 3 writers that were working together on this. You had Mark Waid, Al Ewing, and Jim Zub. So Mark Waid is pretty famous for taking older characters and kind of he did Kingdom Come and whatnot, taking older characters, seeing what's good about them, and then kind of modernizing them a little bit. So that's kind of what he did with, that's definitely something I'll mention about the story. It definitely felt like a Golden Age, Silver Age comic story, but told in a modern tone. And it has good points and bad points, but that you can tell that was Mark Waid's influence. Then you had Al Ewing, who is famous for Ultimates. He wrote Rocket Raccoon. He wrote Immortal, and he's really famous right now for his Immortal Hulk run. So that's where you can kind of see the influences of that's why Hulk was so good, and that's why Rocket was so good, because he had a guy who wrote it. And then Jim Zub is famous for writing a ton of D&D comics, and he's famous and he's been said in interviews, even in the comic books, that he loves
Yeah.
Conan the Barbarian, and Conan the Barbarian is one of his favorite characters. So you can
Yeah.
tell, like, each of them, like we said, pick their favorite characters and then put them in a comic, even if it
Yeah.
didn't make sense.
Yeah.
And I feel like
Like,
that's what happened to this story. Is it started off with, like, you know, you had the Mark Waid influence of, you know, Golden Age quest type comic book stories. You had Al Ewing's influence of really interesting Hulk and Rocket Raccoon and other deep intricate character stuff. And then you had Jim Zub, who's like, it's D&D time.
exactly. Like, I mean, they could have, it would have been the same result for me if they got to that issue, whatever it was. I think it was about 5, issue 5, and then it was like, here's Charlie Chaplin, and just chuck somebody in there, because that's what it felt like with Conan. It didn't fit. He just did not. The whole character just did not gel with what was going on in the story at all. It was just such a, like you said, it was such a shift in tone that it left me just going, okay, I just got to get through the rest of the series.
Yeah. Like, and I think it would have been even more interesting if he had met the group with Hulk, Hawkeye, and Rocket. Because I think him and Hulk would have had a very interesting dynamic between them. Because both of them are very ready to murder, but they have very, like, different reasonings why. Like, Conan's kind of more honorable, whereas Hulk's just angry.
Yeah.
The other thing I really, like, hated was, of course, him and Scarlet Witch were just ready to bone.
Yeah.
Like, I'm glad they didn't pull the trigger. Like, they both were like, wait, we have people we actually like outside of this story. I forgot. But they did have the build up to them almost kissing, and I was just like, please don't. Like, it felt like the most, like, of course you're going to pick the female character to fall in love with Conan.
Yeah.
But it just felt so forced. And I was really glad that they didn't, but it still had the build, which really annoyed me.
Yeah. No, I agree. It was, I mean, out of the character set, to say, okay, well, which character would best, I guess, mesh with Conan? Okay, yeah, Scarlet Witch kind of made sense. Like, I get why it was her that went back or went into this other dimension to meet Conan the Barbarian. But I agree. It was the same thing. It was like, oh, we traveled and we spent a lot of time together going through the desert, and then it's like, this moment almost happens, and I was right there with you. I was just cringing, going, oh, please don't do this. And they didn't. But just even the fact that they like kind of introduced it, I couldn't buy into it.
Yeah. So the other thing that happens in the story, and is I think this is really when the villains started crumbling around crumbling. So Nyx and her children, and I'll air quote that, get teleported also into the Conan universe by the crow people we mentioned earlier. They were doing like this sacrifice thing, and then they use the crystal, which Nyx manages to sense or something like that. Or no, because Scarlet Witch touches it.
She can see it through, Scarlet Witch's eyes.
Yeah, she sees it through Scarlet Witch's eyes. So Nyx arrives, and then meanwhile, Hulk and the rest just obliterate Hypnos.
Yeah.
Like, it wasn't even a contest. They just obliterate Hypnos, which again sucks, because Hypnos probably had one of the coolest designs, and then he kind of went out like a bitch.
Yeah, not just that, but just like turned into just a coward.
A mama's boy.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was
just like you got this strong, evil villain character that just completely melted down.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, which really sucks. I mean, it made Hulk look really cool, but it really sucks that they got this. So Nyx has her other children, and they're in the Conan universe, but it turns out that Spectrum was able to manipulate the light to make her children look like the other Avengers. So it turns out Nyx actually killed Dolos and Apate.
Yes.
Which I felt was the most cop-out BS of all time.
Yeah.
I was just like, one, shouldn't they be more powerful that Nyx isn't able to one-shot them? Well, I mean, I guess that's debatable, because here's the thing, is that Nyx, they start off right at the bat, they're like, hey, look, Nyx can one-shot gods, and then she never does it again until, like we said earlier, it looked like she one-shot all the Avengers, which I don't know why she waited until then. But it looks like she one-shot the Avengers. Turns out she didn't one-shot the Avengers, she one-shot her children.
Hmm.
and then the other Avengers, just went along for the ride type of thing. Which to me, it's like if those are your children, you think she would have been able to sense them?
Yeah, and getting back to the point of one shot. Okay, so whether you just one shot gods or your own children who killed gods, why didn't you just one shot the Avengers?
Yeah, like the second they showed up, why didn't you like snap your fingers and kill them?
Yeah, it just there was no. To me, it was just like there was no rhyme or reason. Like you said, it was just like huge demonstration of power,
Hmm.
and then it was like, yeah, we'll just shuffle her off to the side because, oh,
It's too
yeah, she could
broken.
probably just kill everybody.
Yeah. Like, I mean, good examples of, showing how strong they are and then not completely kneecapping them for the rest of the story. Like I said, you had Hela in Thor Ragnarok, which was always super strong. Is the only reason she never one shot anybody like again is just because she was toying with them.
Yeah.
And then Thanos, beat the crap out of the Hulk in Infinity War, and then he beat the crap out of everybody else who came in front of him.
Yeah,
like,
to me, it was just, I really felt like, especially with a 10-issue arc, like you often find these introductions to these characters where you kind of you got to get the introduction in, and then you got to get them out because they only show up for an issue, maybe 2 issues, but you had 10 issues.
mhm.
10 issues where you could have had, a lot more interaction, a lot more interesting, dynamics to the fights. Like I did like the fact that the one had turned Hercules against the group, and then he started pounding the hell out of Vision. Like there were these interesting things that just kind of flittered and then didn't really happen again.
Yeah. Yeah, and it felt inconsistent, and that's I think
Yeah,
the worst. Like the thing you could say about this entire story arc, it just felt inconsistent the entire way through.
yeah,
So continuing on with the story, Nyx has a crystal, or not Thor, Hulk has a crystal. They both consume their crystal and get the power, and then they both teleport to this random planet, which I
yes,
don't know why. Oh no, I think Thor went. No, I keep saying Thor for no reason. Hulk went to
Hercules.
this planet,
Oh yes, yes, yes.
and then because Nyx could sense the crystal, she also ended up at that planet. Then all the Avengers
Yeah,
somehow ended up at the planet too. Like it just magically happened. Like oh no, it was because Voyager's the most like MacGuffin person of all time. She can just sense
yeah.
where people
Oh,
are.
you need to go here.
Yeah, like
For real.
even if they say we don't know where they are, she just goes, "Oh, I think about them and I can find them." Like even across galaxies, it's the most like MacGuffin thing of all time.
Yeah,
So they're all on this planet, and you think it's going to be this like crazy cool battle between superpower Hulk and superpower Nyx, which I mean it kind of starts off as,
yes,
but then she just depowers Hulk.
yeah.
She just like takes the crystal out of him and turns him into Bruce Banner, which I guess it made sense. The way that they explained it was that this is Nyx's power, so of course she knows how it works,
Yeah.
which
Well, didn't
makes sense.
she brought light to the planet?
Yeah, which somehow crippled the Hulk. It
Yeah.
just it just felt like it felt like a cop out where it's like you think it's gonna be this crazy like god level fist fight, but then she just kind of snaps her fingers like never mind, I take it all back.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean it was set up to a degree. It was kind of like, okay, well, as long as there was sunlight, she and her children were trapped and imprisoned, and then the sun was removed from the equation. She escaped, so it kind of gave that illusion that she doesn't like the sunlight.
Hmm.
And when they brought the sunlight in, that's like the weakness of the immortal Hulk, is that the daytime is Banner's time, the nighttime is the Hulk's. Is you got rid of the Hulk, and at the same time, I mean that was a little bit of a shock. Like I thought it was for me, it was like, okay, that was well played, because they never said it was a weakness.
Hmm.
It was just assumed based on the fact that she was imprisoned as long as the sun was there. But that
Yeah.
was just the curse that held her imprisoned. So at the end of the day, it was like, no, I'm not afraid of the sun. Even I'm the goddess of darkness. I'm not afraid of the sun. But the Hulk reduces down to Banner,
Yeah.
which I thought was like, hey, yeah, okay, that was good. You got me for 10 issues. I did not pick up on that. I assumed what you laid out, My mind went in the direction that the writers obviously wanted you to go.
So now we're at the point in which Nyx has 2 crystals,
Hmm.
and then the Avengers, the most strong member, which was Hulk with a crystal, is taken out, and then she knows where the third one goes or is,
Yeah.
so she leaves. And then you have all the heroes on this planet, just hanging out and going, "Man, what are we gonna do?" Then it turns out the planet has like an avatar, like it has a person that represents the whole planet. and
Yes.
and, and apparently this is like some sort of like 80s space we took a lot of drugs storyline, where the planet has a person, and the person basically tells them like, what do you want? And they're just like, hey, we just want to go stop her. And she's like, okay. And then she just magically teleports them to, I think it was New Jersey.
Yeah.
Where it's like, hey, she's in New Jersey. So this is
Yeah.
really when I was like, this is a dumb story, is the finale. Like this, like, I mean, it had its moments, like, but you can kind of forgive them because they had cool stuff going along with it. Like I said, you had the whole Hulk storyline, which was really cool. So you kind of
Yeah.
forgive every other stupid thing that happens. But this is really when it falls apart for me, because they
Yeah.
go. So the third crystal is apparently in a house. Sorry, the third crystal was at the planet.
Yeah. It was in the Avatar.
It was in the
was in
Avatar,
that
and then so Nyx
planet
gets the third
Avatar.
crystal, but for some reason she's then drawn to this house in New Jersey.
Yes, because it had the house in New Jersey had the light of creation
Yeah, and
in
so
New Jersey.
go ahead.
In New Jersey.
Yeah, of all places,
Like
which was
and
funny.
that's I mean, and that could be a whole other issue of comic book gentlemen, is talking about how the Marvel universe always seems to want to make Earth the center of the universe in everything, and this is just another example of exactly that. Like, they've now gone to different dimensions, they've gone to different planets, they've gone all over the place, and it brings them back to New Jersey, a
Yeah,
house in New Jersey.
like it's not even the world. It's not even Earth. It's like the tri-state area of New York, New Jersey. I
Yeah.
think New Hampshire is the other one in there. Like as long as it happens in that area, that's all that matters.
Yes.
So Nyx goes to the House of Creation because she wants to recreate the world where darkness is more powerful than anything else,
Yeah.
basically. And the Avengers, of course, are Avengers, so they want to stop her. Not really Hulk. Hulk just wants to die.
Yeah.
Not Hulk, but Bruce Banner just wants to die. He also wants to destroy the world, which I thought was a really funny subplot, where he's just
Yes.
like, hey, let's just blow up, like who cares? So all of them, including Conan, go to New Jersey,
Yeah.
and
Conan's in New Jersey.
they can't get into the house because the house is such a power spot that
Yes.
it's like killing them trying to get in. So the only way they're able to get in is Vision and Spectrum merge, which
Yes.
is able to push Vision over the edge into the House of Ideas. And then this is my most biggest pet peeve, and I've only seen this a couple times in comics, but every time I've seen it, I hate it. It turns out the House of Creation is basically just Marvel.
Yes.
Like it's like
the House of Ideas.
the House of Ideas. Like they basically turn Marvel into its own thing. And like I said, I've seen this before in a couple comics. I couldn't name them because it's been so long since
Yeah.
I've seen it. But basically, like breaks the fourth wall. And
Yeah.
the thing that stops Nyx, who's super powerful and wants to recreate the world into darkness, is imagination.
Yes.
That's the ultimate. Like, according to the story, the ultimate, anti-evil is the hope and brightness of imagination.
Yes.
And that's
And,
what
and who do you send into the house as the avatar of imagination to defeat the ultimate evil? Vision.
Vision, who is
The android.
yeah, he's Red Tornado, but Jesus.
Yeah. It was. Yeah. The more and more it mentioned it, I think I didn't catch it the first little couple times that they mentioned, it was like the House of Ideas, the imagine. It was like Marvel. It was like 2 or 3 times later, I kind of, it suddenly hit me, and I was like, oh no, oh no, you didn't just do
Yeah.
just do this, and they did.
Yeah, to me, it's just one of those things where it felt like such a cop out.
Yeah.
Where it's just like you built up this villain to be so powerful, and then you just couldn't think of anything to beat her with other than we're the writers, and that's why we were able to beat her.
Yeah.
And that just feels like such an anticlimactic waste of time.
Yeah, and she burns away, but isn't gone.
No, because you can't have light without dark. Is like the other moral of the story or whatever.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, they were trying to have a really cool finale where they brought in, like, every single superhero in the Marvel pantheon and to punch her. Like, they tried that, but it just felt so flat. Like, it never felt cool or like, really impactful. It just kind of felt, like you said, just very anticlimactic and was just there so that the writers had a chance to draw every single character.
Yeah.
Like, the ending was just nothing. Like, it was such nothing. So yeah, this story ends. You know, all the villains are just gone. You know, whatever. The team splits up. Conan's on an island. Rocket just goes back to space.
In the Savage Frontier.
Savage Frontier. Which, I mean, again, like you said, the only reason they had Conan was just to put him there.
Savage Land.
And then Rocket just goes back to space because he shouldn't have been there in the first place.
Yeah, gambling,
yeah. You had Hercules, who tries to continue the whole, hey, I'm not drinking anymore, I'm a hero now.
Mm-hmm.
And then you had the other Avengers just kind of go, hey, that was cool, you know?
Yeah, Vision's fixed.
Vision's fixed. And then for some reason, Spectrum is no longer immortal, which I didn't get.
Yeah, it was like the moment between her and Vision, like, just drained her of, like, her immortality, I guess. I don't know. And then all of a sudden it's just, you know, that was it. She's now depowered. Vision is fixed.
Yeah. And it just felt like, because like you said, like we were saying earlier, they were both having their own struggles of, you know, Vision was trying to deal with the fact he's mortal now, and Spectrum was trying to deal with the fact she's immortal now. And then it's one of those things where it's like it started these conversations that sounded really interesting, but then, oh, never mind, everything's back to normal now. She's human, he's not. Forget about it. Again, it just felt like they had it's the same issue with the entire story arc, where it starts off really strong, has really interesting ideas, and then just falls flat.
Yeah. Yeah, they definitely introduced, you know, whether it was, you know, the overall story arc or individual, you know, arcs for the characters, it just, that went nowhere. And like, one of the things that bothered me, and I don't know why it just kept replaying, was, you know, you had the Avengers kind of getting into this, you know, holy shit moment where they're all fighting against, you know, Nyx, and it's like, Hawkeye is still useless, but somehow Conan isn't.
Yeah. Yeah, because it's not like Conan has powers.
No, Conan, I mean, he's just, I mean, like, don't get me wrong. Again, like Conan, like the character. I certainly, if you gave me a choice, Hawkeye over Conan, I'd take Conan, just because I like the character more. But if you really break it down, they're just two human beings, you know, that are very talented with a weapon at the end of the day. And I just couldn't understand how, you know, you got Conan, who's seeing, now granted, in the world of Conan's probably seeing some pretty crazy shit, but you have him just kind of going, hey, no problem, I'll just start chopping stuff with my sword. And Hawkeye's just still at that point unraveling to some degree, kind of going like, oh, what can I do? You know, and it doesn't help that the Hulk just keeps poking him the entire time about the fact that he's useless. And it just, to me, it was just like, I don't understand. And that was, I think, again, you had that was that Jim Zub influence of going, hey, I really like Conan, so let's make him a, you know, not so much a focal point. He was a focal point for a couple issues, but certainly he wasn't just off on the sidelines useless.
Like they hammered it into being powerful, which didn't make any sense. Like, literally, you have, at one point you had Conan standing next to Hercules, and they look like they would have the same powers, but then you find out, oh no, Conan doesn't have power. So it's like, but then why are they able to fight the same people? It doesn't make any sense.
No, no. It was, and then the very, very, very last part of this, they flash forward, into the future a little bit, and Zeus is now, I don't know, made of some kind of cosmic energy, and you've got Hercules has got a new suit
And a beard, or a thicker beard.
Yeah, thicker beard.
And that's just where it leaves off.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, so we went through all that just for Hercules to grow a bigger beard.
Yeah. Yeah. It had a lot of promise, especially considering these were not, top tier characters that people were, all over, excluding obviously, the Hulk is obviously pretty popular, has been for a long time. Rocket Raccoon is a very popular character, but not certainly like when you think of the Mount Rushmore of Marvel. Some of these characters aren't on it, and then they sprinkled in those characters that I was interested in. I was very disappointed that they kind of brought in the Blue Marvel on the first issue, and I was like, oh great, we're going to see more of the Blue Marvel, and that was it. He was in the issue for the first issue, and then I think he showed up in the last issue.
Yeah.
And I was supremely disappointed, because I thought, here's a great opportunity for them to, bring out another character that is interesting, different, you haven't seen a lot of, but you just said, oh, here he is in the first issue, here he is in the last, doesn't really do anything, the end.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like he was just there to be Spectrum's love interest, I guess?
Yeah.
Yeah, and again, he was barely in it. Like, I think that really drives home the point that this didn't feel like an Avengers book.
No.
This felt like a Champions or like Defenders, like a subgroup of superheroes. Because it just didn't have that Avengers feel. Because like the one thing that they mention once or twice in the book is that this is affecting the entire galaxy. Like, it wasn't just Earth whose sun disappeared, it was every planet's sun disappears, and like the entire galaxy is in turmoil, and like some of them are freaking out, and then Earth is rioting. Like, that's something they only mention like for half a page. And they show that, and it's like, I feel like if they had mentioned that more times, I feel like it would have given this more stakes. But what it ended up feeling like, it felt more like just a random side adventure that had no impact to the rest of the galaxy or even Earth, that most of the superheroes didn't even know about.
Oh,
like, it didn't feel important. It just felt like it was just, Hercules was trying to get revenge, and it just so happened he brought friends along. That's all it felt like.
Yeah.
And even then,
but they kept
Hercules
telling
didn't
you
even
how
feel like the main
important it
character.
was. It's very important. It's she's going to destroy the universe. Very important. But not that important that anybody's really paying attention.
Yeah, like, it's not important enough for Captain America. It's not important enough for Thor.
Yeah.
And I do think it's really cool that they tried to make other characters, give them more importance. It just felt flat. So, one thing before I want to go into final thoughts is, what did you think about the art? So you had 3 artists working on the series. Paco Medina was the main artist. He did mostly issues. You had Sean Izaakse do 4 issues, and then you had Carlo Barberi do 1 issue. So what was your overall impression of the art? Who was your favorite, and what did you think of it?
Definitely my favorite. I very much enjoy Paco Medina. I really like the art. I was disappointed. Like I said, I hate when they do this. When they mid story they switch up the artist. Now it's a little more bearable when they bring in artists that were good, and I would say that Paco is certainly my favorite, followed by Barberi, and then the third gentleman's name.
Izaakse.
Oh, Izaakse. And I wouldn't say it was right across the board. It wasn't bad. Like I didn't feel like the art degenerated to the point of like, oh my god, I just gotta like push through these issues. Like it was decent. Paco certainly was my favorite, but I hate seeing this where they bring in these other artists, and I would have rather seen them just stretch out the series if it took a little longer for, you know, one or the other to just do the whole thing. In my opinion. But Paco was definitely my favorite. I thought his, you know, his character expressions are just great. The introduction, obviously, he got the introduction of these of the villains, which I thought he did a great job of. Just all in all, I would say Paco, or his portion of the art that he did was fantastic.
Yeah, so I had my issue with the art is, to me, it felt inconsistent. Like I felt like one panel you would have like really detailed, really dark art, like especially like a couple scenes with the Hulk when it just showed his face, it looked really gritty and interesting. But then there's a couple panels where it felt like almost cartoonish.
Yeah.
Like it felt like it was a lot more rounded faces and a lot more like less detail and whatnot. And I felt like that was like it took away from it a little bit. And I also felt like actually I had a hard time differentiating between the three artists. I kind of felt like they all had the same art style, or at least really close art styles. Like it wasn't a huge difference between the three of them.
Right.
And it just, and like I said, it just kind of felt like they kept flipping between detail and cartoonish no detail. So I would actually have to say I liked Izaxi the most because it felt like he had the least changes in between panels. Like he felt the most consistent about all the issues he did. Whereas Medina and I don't really remember Barberi too much because he only did one issue. But Medina, it felt like he kept changing his style throughout the book, and it was almost like confusing a little bit. Where
I like Medina's style. A very similar artist is Lorez, is another one that draws very similar to him. I don't know what it is about that. It's you know, bordering almost you know, slightly cartoony to a degree, and I've liked his art since the first time I saw it. Like I said, the only thing that bothered me, I would have rather seen just one artist take the whole series.
Yeah.
Just so that the consistency is there right across the board. You know, some artists obviously draw things, you know, better. I mean, there are artists that do the dark and gritty a lot better than other ones that do the, you know, light and comical. And with this one, like, yeah, certainly there were characters in the book that were, you know, light and comical, and that certainly, I think, you know, brightened up with certain artists, and then other artists didn't do so well with that. But then you had the, you know, the dark and gritty. You know, certain artists did better with that. You know, those portions of the book than the others. And again, if you just had the consistency of this is the one artist all the way through, and I realize they got to bang these things out in you know, short order. So to do 10 issues, you know, as quick as they can. You know, you have to. That's what you have to do nowadays. But it's just so disappointing when you see that element of you've got an artist, you're getting used to, you know, the art and the flavor, what's going on for the first couple issues, and then it switches.
Yeah. So yeah, I definitely think if they had stretched it out, they would have had more consistent art, and it would have been a lot better.
Yeah.
So final thoughts, 2 questions. What would you, because every story should have a moral to the story or a lesson that you learn from reading the story. So what would you say is the moral of this story, or that they were trying to hit?
Oh.
So the one that I think they were trying to throughout the thing, throughout the arc, is that they were trying to say people change. Because like I said, you had the whole inner monologues of the Vision, you had the inner monologue of Spectrum, of you know, and even Hawkeye a little bit. It's like people change, and that's okay. Like it's okay to move forward. And it felt like they were trying to say that with the subplots. It just felt like it just got very muddled and very lost in translation. Because in the end, it seemed like the other moral of the story they were trying to push at the very end, like they waited until the last issue to push this, was imagination is more powerful than anything in the world. Like if you're sad, just imagine something.
Which makes Marvel the most powerful thing in the world.
Yeah, and even beyond that, it makes Disney the most powerful thing in the world. It's like it felt like
Yeah,
a corporate, plug the overlord type of thing. But again,
yeah,
they waited until the last issue to try to push that, and it
yeah,
just didn't make any sense. So
yeah,
yeah, so again, every story should have a moral, and if you don't, what's the point of writing a story?
yeah,
But it just felt like they kind of lost what their moral was throughout the story.
yeah. Yeah, I felt initially, without thinking too deeply into it, the first thought was, and this is how they brought Conan into the Marvel universe. Like
Yeah,
that was my because this whole 10 issue arc is just so that they can set up the Savage Avengers with Conan and the Punisher, and I mean, don't get me wrong, weirdest grouping of people ever, all uber violent and nuts, but that was my initial thought, but I think going back and kind of flipping through it, yeah, as you pointed out, the different perspectives of each of the characters, and it wasn't just a perspective; it was this is what I'm dealing with in my own in my own personal life as a character, and it was kind of like you had a variety of characters, from very powerful characters to not so powerful characters, but they all had things that were going on in their lives, things that they had to overcome, and I think that for me it was anything can be overcome. Right at the end, Vision went through his little I'm mortal. I'm gonna die. I'm accepting it. I'm moving on. That was kind of his thing, kind of just coming to realization or at least as he thought, eventually I'm gonna expire, right? Only to not expire, but at least there was something there. Like I got what they were trying to do there. Spectrum, same thing. Like, what is it going to be like in 100 years when everybody's possibly dead, or everybody at least I know is dead, and I'm still here. And what is that like? And I did appreciate the attempt, or at least the setup of saying, like, here's these variety of power leveled characters all dealing with their own inner turmoil, which some of it got kind of resolved to some degree, but I felt like there was just some of it that just such as Spectrum, it was like, I'm dealing with this. Oh, now I don't, because I'm not. I don't have
yeah,
that power level anymore.
yeah.
Vision. I'm dying. Oh wait, no, I'm not. I'm okay now.
Yeah, like their problems got accidentally solved, which is not something that usually happens in real life, and it just feels like a cheap way to end it.
Yeah, and for me, it was just looking at each of those characters. It was just kind of an eye opening to say, like, in real life, like, I may not understand what you're going through, but seeing it from this point of view, is saying, like, this person's not very powerful, and you'd think that they don't have these issues. They do. And these very powerful characters, like, what do you got to worry about? Like, look at you. They have those struggles, and it was kind of eye opening to say, you're not always going to identify or understand why they're going through them, or that they are even going through them, but everybody has their own demons to deal with, or their own turmoil to overcome. And I thought that was an interesting thing that I just didn't feel kind of quite resolved with a lot of the characters. That makes any sense?
Yeah, like there was no resolution.
No.
So, final question: would you recommend people to read this story?
Uh, I'm gonna. There's a two-part to this for me. No. uh, just because, again, I just felt like if I was going to recommend something, it certainly would have nailed on the points that we have discussed. Just kind of fell flat. Number one. Number two, yes, I would have, if I was trying to show someone, like, hey, you want to see how cool Spectrum is?
Yeah.
right? There were some moments in the comic that I just felt like that particular character, even though I kind of felt like the whole way through Hercules was like the lead,
Or supposed to be.
but he wasn't.
Yeah.
And it really just Spectrum just I thought just like owned this entire series.
I think
Like
her and Hulk for sure.
yeah, like Hulk from just a like, hey, oh, you are creepy,
Hmm.
and you're you know you're so much different than what people are normally used to with the Hulk. Just from a gritty character level was interesting. But if you wanted to see, okay, what Spectrum, a character that's not given enough, face time. Here's a beautiful character that is very powerful and very interesting and has a power set that you can get incredibly creative with. And I thought that was kind of demonstrated throughout the series with her.
Hmm.
So if somebody was like, hey, I'm kind of interested in this character, hey, read this series because this is a good example of what she can do.
Yeah.
But as an overall story, no.
Yeah.
It unfortunately gets the thumbs down from me.
Yeah. Like the only people I would recommend this story for is if you're a fan of older comics like Golden Age, Silver Age, like really old comics. I think they'll enjoy this because like I said, it kind of had that, old comic cheese to it.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like if you're a fan of that but still want, a little bit of a modern take on it, I think this is actually a pretty good old comic in a modern time type of thing. And like it even had, Conan the Barbarian, who is one of the oldest characters in modern storytelling and whatnot.
Yeah.
So because he's from the 30s or something like that. So I think it's a very specific set of people I would recommend this, but I think there's a lot of better stories that people should spend their time on. Like what I actually think would be a better example of what this story was trying to do is actually Neil Gaiman's Sandman. Like I feel like there's a lot. Like even if you look at the characters, like you had Nyx, who literally looks like she should be a character from Neil Gaiman's Sandman. Mm-hmm. Like I feel like this story was like that, except Marvelized. And I feel like people, if you're going to spend time to read comics, I feel like you should just read a Sandman comic instead. Like and even other Avengers comics, there's better comics to spend your time on, unless you're a big fan of like old comics. Then go ahead. But other than that, I don't think it's worth the time.
Yeah, no. Unfortunately, it was 10 issues, probably 8 too long.
Yeah.
And just with the like we discussed, just the difference in tone and the up and down and the change of the artists and the hey, look, we're centering in on this character in Hercules, who I was, like I said, I was kind of excited to go, okay, like I don't really know much about this character, I want to see this work out. And then there would be like big changes in the direction where all of a sudden like Scarlet Witch almost becomes like the focal point for a lot of this story, especially when she's spending the time with Conan, and then all of a sudden Conan becomes a little bit of a central figurehead because it's like, oh yeah, we're bringing Conan into the Marvel universe. But the whole time, really, the two most interesting characters through the whole thing are, like we've discussed, Spectrum and the Hulk, with some very good chuckles from Rocket Raccoon.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, that was our review of Avengers No Road. Why was it called No Road Home? I just realized this.
I was asking myself that throughout the whole the whole series, and like No Surrender made sense to me because it was like the whole thing was, it was a competition. It was like you can't surrender because if you do surrender, you give up. You're gonna lose, and okay, the bad guys get a mark, and that's moving in the wrong direction. This was like No Road Home. I have absolutely no idea.
I guess because Hercules' home was ruined, but I mean, everybody else went home. Like at the end of the book, they all go home. So I don't know. So this is our review of Avengers No Road Home. We plan on doing this in the future, so let us know if you liked it or what you want us to change about it or whatnot. But thanks everybody for listening, and we'll see you all next time.
See you next time.